Yeah, well, when I came to California, I ended up getting a job for the California Bankers Association. Now, I knew nothing about banking. Honestly, I mean, very little about banking. And so, but they were interested in someone that knew Washington and knew how to get around Washington. So that was my entree into the banking environment. And I ended up doing that and having a very, very supportive boss who eventually became very ill and passed away. But during that, he trained me and he really was a mentor to me, and I eventually got his job. But that's a story in and of itself, because this was a time period when, you could almost openly discriminate against women. I mean, the executive director of the organization said, we'll never hire a woman to take this position as, vice president of federal government relations. And so I was like, oh, wow, I know where my battle is now. I mean, once again, we have control and command situations, and you're telling me I can't do it. Well, I'm going to do it. So I found more mentors that would be able to help me along the way. And that was how I was able to succeed in getting to that next level. And then when I transitioned over to Western Independent Bankers, it was because of men who had seen me perform and do a good job. And one of the committee members said, oh, I'm president of this other organization. Would you be interested in a job there? And I was like, oh, okay, I'd love to talk about that, which I think was as I'm coaching women on their board journey, it's the same. People that have seen you and trust you and will recommend you. And 90%, I think, of that interaction with boards and for a good part of I think becoming a senior executive, people have to trust you. But I think it's even more that way in boards, because they've got to be able to know that they can trust you in a way as a peer, because that's what you are when you're a board member. You're a peer. You don't report to the other board members. They have to know that they can feel comfortable with you in environments, and they can't really fire you. So they better trust you going in.
So if I'm a woman on the journey and I want to make sure that I can give that sense of trustworthiness, what are some of the things that you see people doing that really works? Is it people having seen you in action? Is it something that people say or do?
That's a good question, Julie. I think, it's developing trust is a complicated issue, but it tends to be when the going gets rough, how do you act? And, are you a person that is going to stick to the ethics and the mission and the values when things get rough? And to me, that's a huge issue for anyone that's trying to figure out how to show up in the world as a good person to have on your team, which is ethics are easy when things are all fine and dandy. But when you have to make a decision that really is something that challenges what might be the most expedient thing to do and what really is the right thing to do, if people have seen you do that over time, they know that they can trust you to be there with them. And that I think that, you're authentic and you're transparent. I mean, if you are not those things, I don't know how you trust someone. I mean, we have all had people that lie by omission. And when you lie by omission, you lie, in my view.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so for me, you clearly have a great sense of what people are looking for and what it makes a really terrific board member. But how did you actually decide that this is a role you wanted to play? I mean, you went from politics and skiing to banking. How did getting on board play into that? What was your insight?
Well, I had been involved with doing the training of bank board members, putting together programs that would bring in a governance expert or an audit committee expert or something of that nature. And we did very large conferences with board members and CEOs, et cetera, and also, C-suite people that would be brought in. But typically we would have a lot of these peer group environments where the directors would get together. And so I would help kind of coordinate some of that sort of stuff. I would sit at the table with some of them. And I really started doing things that were of interest to me because it was the governance of an organization and the outside view of what's going to make this company better, what's going to make us have a better culture, what's going to make us do all these things that really will help us succeed. And as a result of that and my inquiries and my discussions, I was asked to be on two smaller private boards. One of them was an organization which I actually helped, really was one of the impetus for starting it, which was I saw what was happening with workers' compensation issues at one point, and we did a mutual program for banks to buy workers' compensation and a mutual insurance environment. So that was, I wasn't really an internal member because I wasn't a bank that was buying. So, but I was asked because I was, I'd been involved with helping to start up the concept to sit on that board, which I did for quite some time. So I just found it was very intriguing to look at how that outside perspective really helps the management to be able to think outside what they might normally be thinking of.
So if I get the timeline right, this is around the 2000s that you were working in these kinds of programs. I think the data says there weren't very many women in the boardroom during that period of time. How is it that you decided that you wanted to work with women to get this board?
Right. I decided when I decided I was going to be leaving the Western Independent Bankers, I say graduated. I don't like the word retire, but graduated from that. And I wasn't sure at that time what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to really pursue more board work or what I wanted to do. I was ready for a major change in my way I was working. I knew I still wanted to work. And so I was approached by several companies to think about sitting on their boards. And some of them I thought I might be interested in. As I pursued it, I thought, I'm not ready to do this again right now. I've been sitting on a lot of board meetings for a long time as an internal board member as well as through the other ones. And I just thought, this one's not right for me. I think I'll call so-and-so and see if this might be right for her. Or I'd call them back and say, I'm not really interested in that right now because I'm doing XYZ. Would you like me to? Oh, we'd love for you to refer us to some other people. So I thought, wow, this is kind of an interesting concept. Maybe I should just think about how to do this. And initially, I thought I would do this just for banks because that was the area I knew best. Mm-hmm. And I had several referrals I made while I was still at WIB. Western Independent Bankers, and they got board seats. So I thought, wow, maybe this is something I should do as sort of my next step. Mm-hmm. And then it just really hit me so hard that, wow, if I can find women this quickly that are qualified to be able to refer on, how can I help them make sure that they know how to do this? So that's when I thought I started doing research on what was out there. And I really happened to hit the nail on the head, I think, in terms of how the movement was just starting. People were just starting to say, look, we just need a lot more women on boards. I got involved with the organization 2020 Women on Boards. They were just launching the idea that we needed 20% of board seats for women by the year 2020. I thought, well, boy, that's a great thing for me to participate in. So I thought, this is how I can give back and increase the gender diversity in the boardroom. And it's been incredibly rewarding to see where we are so far, Julie. You've been so active in this. We've been partners in this together for the last, 5-6 years, and being able to see how far we've come. Despite some bumps in the road, we have really, as a constituency of women, to do this, plus men that want to help as well, that are starting to see, especially I found, interestingly enough, especially men that have daughters, that they want to make sure their daughters have the opportunities that maybe their wives haven't had yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe they still want their wives to get the board seat, but they're also thinking about, I want my daughter to have this. I heard that from a private equity speaker a couple of years ago, and I thought, you know what? Some of them really get it, that they really want to make sure this happens. So